Hi friends, by the title of the video you guys probably understood that this is about 3D modeling. Some of you may already know what 3D modeling means, but because this is for beginners and kids like me, I'm going to try to explain it. Let's start with 2D. When we draw something on paper, say, front of house, that's 2D because on paper we can only draw 2 dimensions, length and width. That means we can't turn the paper around and see the back of the house, right? But when it comes to 3D, there's 3 dimensions, length, width, and depth. That means if you model a house in 3D, you can actually see the back, side, roof, and even underneath the house, which I think is better than actually seeing a house. Because you can't really see underneath the house. I mean, unless you go digging, which I don't recommend. When it comes to 3D modeling in computer, there are many softwares. I'm familiar with SketchUp and Blender. I used SketchUp in the past, but unfortunately it's not free anymore. Meanwhile, Blender is a very powerful 3D modeling and animation tool. And the best part, it's free! Now if you want a 3D printer model, there are more pieces to the puzzle. The first part is the 3D modeling software, which in this case, as you guessed, is Blender. The second part is the Slicer software. I'm using Bamboo Studio. In the Slicer software, you can specify temperature, thickness, print pattern, and things like that. The third part is the printer itself. And of course, we need to film it, which is the material used for the 3D printing. I'll be doing detailed videos on Slicer and 3D printing later. But now, let's get started with 3D modeling with Blender. I have switched to screen share mode so that you guys could see how to download Blender and go from there. First, go to your browser and type blender.org. Mine's already there, so yeah. The website name is blender.org. After the website page loads, then you'll see a screen similar to this. Press download. Since I'm using an iMac with an Apple Silicon chip, I'm going to click this option, which is the option for macOS Apple Silicon. As you can see, it's downloading and it looks like it's going to take some time. Meanwhile, I'll grab some water. So I'm back. As you can see, it's done. So I'm gonna double click. Then I'm gonna drag Blender to the app folder. Now if you're a Windows user, you need to execute the file. I'm gonna go to Launchpad so that I can launch Blender now. Whoa, now we have Blender here. I'm going to click that. Voila! This is Blender. Now we can learn how to 3D model. Just to let you know, Blender is a very sophisticated tool and there are many options. So if I go over all of them today, you'll get confused. That's why in today's video, we'll be going over the basic navigations and maybe we'll make a simple model. I'll be structuring the lessons in such a way that in every video, we'll be covering how to make something new, and as time passes, we'll be learning new tools while modeling. Now it's time to get started! If you look at the top of the screen, you'll see an X, a Y, and a Z. X is marked in red, Y is marked in green, and Z is marked in blue. That corresponds to red as X, Y as green, and Z as blue, but in this view you can't see it. Usually in graphs and computer programming, Y means vertical, X means horizontal, and Z means depth. You can think of it as the length, width, and depth of the object you're modeling. Now if I left click on Y and drag it, I can change the view. That's not just with Y. If you left click on X, Y, or Z and move the mouse, you could rotate the view. Remember underneath the house? This is how you could see it. Yeah. There are many shortcuts in Blender. I'll avoid them as much as possible. I'll start introducing them as we progress. Let's move on to the zoom tool. If you left click on your mouse and move your mouse up and down, it will zoom in and out. So you could change how you want it to see. Now let's go to the hand tool. If you left click, move your mouse up, down, left, right. You could change the view and how you see the cube or whatever you have. The camera view and the perspective view is not that relevant for now, so we could cover that later. Let's say cube's not the object you want. So how do you delete it? After you click on the object, you could right click, then you could press delete, or you could do the shortcut, which is X on your keyboard, then enter it. Now it's gone. Let's say you want something else in a different place. So let's go to the cursor tool. Now if you click anywhere on your screen with a left click, that's where the cursor will come. And that's where you would add your object. So now how do we add the object? So on the top of your screen on the left side, you would see an option called add. Press that, then there's all these options. Go to mesh. Let's say you want a cone, then left click on the cone option. Now let's say you don't like where the cone is. Then there's a tool for that. Left click on the move tool, then 3 arrows will appear. The green one stands for Y, labeled here. X one, red one stands for X, labeled here. Blue one stands for Z, labeled here. Now if you left click and move your mouse, it will move on the specific axis you click on. Now you know how to move the object that you select. Now let's say you want to add something else. Then once again, let's go to add, mesh, then let's say this time a tourist. Wait a second. That looks like a tire. But it's laying flat. How does it roll? Then we got the tool just for that. The rotate tool. So if you left click on it, you'll see the rotate tool. And once again, there's the Y, X, and Z. Let's see what happens if you left click and move your mouse on the X axis. It's rotating, but this is not perfect. How do we make it perfect? Then you can go to this little corner that says rotate because that's what we just used. And you can type it to make it a specific angle. Now we want a 90 to make it roll. Now I'm going to enter it. It's 90. That's not just with the X. You could do it with Y or Z. And once again, I want 90, which this is not. So I could type in 90 again. Now enter. Now you know how to use the rotate tool. Only one problem. This tire is too small for my car. How do I make it bigger? There's a tool for that. It's called the scale tool. So now there's, once again, Y, Z, and X. I'm gonna make it bigger by the Y. Wait, that's odd. That's not a circle. So how do I scale it proportionately? So once again, I could go here. I could left click on the middle and copy it by doing Command C. Now I could paste it by doing Command V on all the other axes. Command V. Command V. Enter. Now that's more like a circle. Or there's a different way. It's the shortcut. You could select S, stands for scale. Then it'll scale it up proportionately. Like this. See, that's even. We don't need to go through all this. Now let's quickly go over the transform tool. If you click on it, you'll see it's a combination of move, rotate, and scale. That's pretty cool, right? I think we covered all the basic navigations for now. As I said earlier, we will be trying to make something in every video. Even though we haven't learned edit mode yet, we'll still try to make something in object mode. Something simple so that you guys can make it. What should we make? Why not a table? But before that, I'm just gonna delete these two. I'm just gonna select them. Hold down the shift key if you want to select multiple. I'm just gonna select X on my keyboard and enter. So those are gone. Now if you want your cursor in the middle, what you do is shift C. Then the cursor's in the middle. Now to make the table, we're gonna add something. Add mesh and a cube. Just gonna zoom in to get a better view. Now we're gonna scale it to make the tabletop. I'm scaling it down on the Z-axis. Now I'm gonna scale it up on the Y-axis. Same on the X-axis. Just a little. Now we've made the tabletop, but we need our legs. So how do we do that? I'm gonna move my view to the bottom of the table. Now I'm gonna select the cursor tool and put my cursor here. Okay. So just seeing if the cursor's good. Yeah, the cursor's good. So now I'm gonna add a mesh, and once again a cube. This is not gonna be a table leg, so we need to scale it down. This time I'm gonna use the shortcut S on your keyboard. Now scale it down. Now we'll need to make this bigger. So scale tool, and I'm gonna make it bigger on a Z. That's too high, so I'm gonna move it down. That's one leg, but one leg's not gonna work. So we need to make more of the same thing. How do we do that? Well, we could do Shift D, which stands for duplicate. And I'm gonna select X for the X-axis. Now I'm just gonna put it there. Better view. That looks good. Now we need two more. So once again, we're gonna Shift D, but this time we want it on the Y-axis. So we're gonna select Y. Now move it, boom. Now changing my view one more time. Yep, that looks good. Now one more leg. Shift D and one more time on the X-axis. So we're gonna select X. Now that's good. Now we've made a tabletop and it's legs, so it's a table now. Good job! Now you guys could make your first model in Blender. That's it for today, so bye bye! See you in the next video!